Hello and welcome back to the DebateGate Sports Podcast with your boy JMels16 Joshua in the house tonight, and I am alone today. Very sad, but it is not so sad because we are doing a mock draft episode, a long ass episode where I did probably 20 hours of research over the past 72 hours. Yes, I'm good at prioritizing my schoolwork as well as everything else. I'm great at what I do, but anyways, let's get right into it. So this is going to be a mock draft episode, but it's not like any other mock draft. It is, in my own personal opinion, it's not going to be trying to predict what happens in the draft. It is what I would do if I were every team. So let's just start with it. Let's start with Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, fuck you, Chris Sims. Fuck you, Chris Sims, and you absolute selling the soul, no publishing journalist integrity ass motherfucker for doing what you did and saying Zach Wilson is better than Trevor Lawrence. It is stupid. Trevor Lawrence is insane. I'm not going to get much into it because it's obvious. Everyone knows what he's good at and all that kind of stuff. So I don't really need to say anything. But I'm going to spend on multiple times where I'm going to spend a solid probably 10 minutes on a pick. And this is one of them because so many people are going to say Zach Wilson here. And every single mock draft that I looked at said Zach Wilson here at number 2. But I have Justin Fields. People forget about how good Justin Fields was. This man was insane. So let's go through his positives. He's absolutely insane arm. He has a great arm, really good with his legs for his quarterback. He's an awesome quarterback. You know, most of the people know what he's really great at. And he's an amazing quarterback. And he was the number 2 forever. For a long time, he was the clear-cut number 2. But then all of a sudden, this offseason, they were like, you know what? Let's make Zach Wilson. Let's make Zach Wilson number 2. For what reason? In fact, people over-psychoanalyzed what he did. And one of those things was staring down wide receivers. Now, here's the thing that Ryan Day did for some fucking reason is he was like, you know what, with our young wide receivers and our quarterbacks who's been here for a while, let's change up the scheme to where instead of just normal routes, the wide receivers get to choose their route mid-route. Now, typically Tom Brady and Julian Edelman do this. Why? Because they've been doing it for 20 years and they have an amazing, obviously exaggeration, but they have an amazing chemistry together. So they know exactly what they're going to do and they think alike. So he looked like he was staring down routes, but he was just like, okay, what is Chris Olave going to do? Come back, go, crossing route, out route. And, you know, he had so many options, and they just did it. So he had to wait until they were done. And then he has all these positives of, like, you know, running ability, accuracy, everything you can ask for in a quarterback. Now, the main issue with him, though, is that he gets into, like, a run mode. And speaking of run mode, quickly, oh my God, he's amazing under pressure, and his pocket movement is insane. He looks like Tom Brady in the way he shifts in a pocket. But if he ever has to run out of the pocket or run forward up into a pocket, sometimes he turns into a run mode. And it's annoying. So instead of running out of the pocket like this, right, running out of the pocket with the football here ready to throw, he's he's out here running like he's a fucking running back. He's running like a running back, so then he's not looking downfield and missing big play opportunities, sometimes taking sacks, sometimes only 2 or 3 yard runs. So it's very, very annoying, and that's really one of probably his biggest issue. So that's why I have him going number 2 here, as well as I think he's a safer pick than Zach Wilson, who I actually have going next. Now, I honestly don't really like Zach Wilson at all that much. I actually have him 4th. Yes, I have him 4th behind Mac Jones. I think right now Mac Jones is a better quarterback. Now, why? He short arms everything, man. He short arms everything. That's an extreme over-exaggeration. Clip that if you want. He doesn't short arm. He does short arm stuff a ton. He also has shitty mechanics. He does exactly what Carson Wentz did in 2020. That's called pigeon toeing, where he's like pointing this way, but his knee is pointing to the target. So then he's more susceptible to leg injuries, as well as he has to rely on his arm more for accuracy, which of course he has a great arm, but that's not going to fly in the NFL as much. Did you see 2020 Carson Wentz? Pile of trash. So I don't like that. And then also one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen under pressure in general. He never steps up in the pocket. He never, he steps into his throws. Absolutely never. And he always throws it off his back foot and then like Phillip Rivers it from the side, which he has the arm talent to do sometimes, but then they're either fluttering, they're way up in the air way too long, they're to the left or to the right or overthrown. And it's insane because he does this and he gets away with it. So people are like, oh my God, he only has 2 picks. In the NFL, he's probably going to have 20 something because of how many throws he does that when he's under pressure. He doesn't step into throws. So I think if he goes to the Jets as well, he'll be a shit quarterback, right? Because the 50-50, right? 50-50 rule. Quarterbacks are 50% going to bust, 50% going to really do well, or not really, really do well, but do well. So that means that probably in this draft class, especially with the talent quarterback position, 1's going to be good, 2 are going to be like elite, and then 2 are going to be busts. So in my opinion, Zach Wilson will be one of those busts because he's going to go number 2 of what we've all heard. But I don't think he will because he's going to go to the 49ers. And you know what the 49ers are? A model organization and not a piling, floating barge of flame. So the 49ers are actually a competent organization and they have Kyle Shanahan. So they'll be able to fix him. They'll be able to really, really work on him and help him reach his fullest potential. And I think if he somehow goes to the 49ers, he'll be, guess what? Top 5 quarterback in the next 3 years. That's how good I think his upside is, but that's only if he goes to the 49ers, and he'll be a bust otherwise. So thank you for listening to my TED Talk about quarterbacks. Anyways, moving on, let's go next to pick number 4 in the Falcons. Kyle Pitts. I mean, he's insane. At first, I was kind of against it. I think in my first mock draft, I had him going 11 to the Giants. Now I have him going 4 because the more I look at it, I was like, oh my God, he's a tight end. So all these teams, for some reason, have good tight ends, right? So you have Hunter Henry, I think. Yeah, no, Hunter Henry, he doesn't go there. I don't know why I said that. The guy, he's a ginger. I don't remember his name. He's a ginger. He's Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst is a really good tight end. So he's really good. The Bengals, no one, but we'll get to that later. Dolphins, Gesicki. Lions, TJ Hawkinson. Panthers, nobody. I mean, Broncos, Noah Fant. Cowboys, Nick Schultz, I think his name is, and then Giants with Evan Ingram. So it's like, I'm like, okay, so he's a tight end, so there's these good tight ends, so he can't go there. No, he's a 6'6" guy who runs a 4.4 40. If you stick him out at wide receiver, he's the best wide receiver in this draft class by a mile, and then he can block. He's a way better blocker than, let's say, Travis Kelce or anyone or like a Darren Waller, which he gets compared to a lot. But here's the thing, so he can block. Darren Waller doesn't block. He doesn't run super fast. So he runs fast, like low 4.5s or high 5.4s, not a 4.4 40. So he is insane with a great route runner. Oh my God, he's great. And he's the best skilled position player in this draft class. So that's why I'm going forward to the Falcons, as well as Matt Ryan's not the problem. So why is getting a quarterback the solution? As well as there's no defensive player in this mock draft or in this draft class that is really like a Chase Young level or like top 5 for sure. No way. Or Joey Bosa or Jalen Ramsey or something like that. So let's move on to the Bengals. Now, there's been a little bit of what I like to call cool guy parasiteness. Yes, I came up with that on the spot. Yes, it's a great name. Do you have to worry about it? No. Anyways, that is the Ja'Marr Chase pick to the Bengals. He's cool. He's not a tackle. He's interesting. He can do cool things. No, he's not going to solve anything. But you know who will? Penei Sewell. This man is insane. With Joe's injury, you obviously have to go offensive line, in my opinion. I know people say like Riley Reef, shove him over to guard. I watched him play guard in Minnesota for multiple years, and he was fine there, and he's not a great tackle. So now you're going to miss up, in my opinion, the past chance to get Joe Thomas because you have Riley Reef? My ass. I mean, like, what is that decision making? So I go with Penei Sewell here. And I had high expectations. Like, this guy's going to be good. No, this guy's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's amazing. He's amazing. It's insane. If you want to watch one game of the greatest left tackle play in college I've ever seen, go watch his 2019 opening day versus Auburn. Oh my God, he manhandles everybody, and he fucking pancakes. He pancakes Auburn Derek Brown. That doesn't happen, but he did it. So he's going to be a great tackle. So that's why I have him going here, because I think he'll help the Bengals way more than a wide receiver will. Now for another pick that I'm going to spend really, really long on, and probably way too long. Gavin's going to get mad at me in the editing process. And that is Devonta Smith to the Dolphins. I like Devonta Smith more. So I have Ja'Marr Chase going 7, so I'm going to kind of talk back and forth about both of them. So Ja'Marr Chase, because the Lions obviously need a wide receiver, and Ja'Marr Chase is still an amazing wide receiver. I just think Smith is better. So let's go through them. Woo. Okay, Ja'Marr Chase. People, you got to remember, when it comes to picking these guys, I'm ticky-tacking, right? They're both, in my opinion, going to be great. I think they're both going to be really good. I am picking tiny things. If they choose Ja'Marr Chase, am I going to be mad? No, because I'm splitting hairs here between the two. I swear, I wrote Ja'Marr Chase down first, then I switched it to Devonta Smith because I wanted to go with my gut. So it's very close, but let's talk about Ja'Marr Chase's strengths and weaknesses. 50-50 balls, the best in the class. He's insane. Route running, he's a good route runner. He's not great, but he's good. And then that athleticism at 6'1" with a 40-inch vertical and a 4.3 40, that is a mix that you rarely see, and that is what gives him an amazing athleticism. But his weakness is, have you ever watched an LSU game? His release is so slow. He's a crawling guy off the line. He is so slow off the release. His hands are super inconsistent. I didn't realize this, but his hands are really inconsistent. He drops a lot of passes. Now, what I'm saying a lot is that instead of dropping like none or like 3, like Devonta Smith over his entire career, it's like 7 or 9, right? Just pulling those out of thin air. It's way more than Devonta Smith. So it's not like awful hands. It's just a lot more inconsistent than people think. And then he also relies on his athleticism. A lot of times he looks like he's being lazy and he's just like, I'm a better athlete than you, so I don't really have to try. So I think going to the Dolphins will help him. But then also Devonta Smith, you have time to develop him as well as Ja'Marr Chase, because you already have Devontae Parker and Will Fuller there, and they're both really good. So they have no pressure coming in as a wide receiver 3. And I think Ja'Marr Chase is a smaller AJ Green, but a smaller, faster AJ Green. But that doesn't matter because AJ Green, as good as he is, he's no Devonta Smith. Or Devonta Smith's comparison, in my opinion, Marvin Harrison, a guy who just gets open. Now, do I think it's a close comparison? No. Why? Because there's been no one like Devonta Smith in history. There's been no one with that kind of mix of just pure get openness, is what I like to call it. He just gets open no matter what it's through. His route running, speed, athleticism, jerkiness, release off the line, physicality, anything. He can get by it. And he is insane. And now let's talk about people who call like his majority issue. So his weight and size, right? So he's playing SEC football. Really, how far physicality is that off from the NFL? In my opinion, not that much. A lot of people take big hits in SEC football, especially if you're in Alabama and you're not like facing a ton of, shitty teams all the time. You're facing the Auburns, you're facing the Georgias, you're facing the LSUs, you're facing the Texas A&Ms, you're facing Clemson, Notre Dame, that kind of thing. So he just doesn't care. And I would be more worried about it if he had a bunch of ticky-tack injuries throughout his career. He didn't. He was basically an Iron Man up until his last half when he rolled an ankle, where really any other wide receiver would have rolled an ankle in that situation. And he only set out a half at the end of the college football playoffs when he already had 240 yards. So, no matter what, he gets open. And people say Pro Football Focus, because they're special, say he's going to run in the 4.5s and it doesn't really matter. If you actually watch him, he plays so much faster than the 4.5s. He plays in the 4.2s. There's this play where he catches a wheel route from Mac Jones in the national semifinal against Notre Dame. Shout out, Gavin, your team got killed. Where he just blows by half the defense. And it's not like they don't know that he's good. He won the Heisman. So everyone knows he's good. They know he's weapon number 1, especially with Waddle out at that time. He's weapon number 1, and they just can't catch up to him. Is it Maybe he just doesn't perform well in the 40s. I don't know. His game speed is so much faster. So I think he has much less issues than Ja'Marr Chase, where Ja'Marr Chase is much more inconsistent. And I don't have a worry about his size. Now, some people do, and that may drop him below. I get that. I see that, but I don't think so. So finally, let's move on from a pick that I haven't talked about yet, and that is number 8 with the Panthers. Now, this one was a little bit hard because at first you're thinking like, oh, quarterback Trey Lance here, but then they trade for Sam Darnold, who I like Sam Darnold more than I like Trey Lance. This will be a theme since he hasn't gone yet. You probably won't see him for a while, to be honest. So if you look at their roster, right, you're like, okay, this is an okay roster, and they're their holes going in were like cornerback and edge, right? But then they solved it in free agency with the Hassan Reddick signing as well as an AJ Boye signing. So they got 2 good guys there. And then guess who they lost because they brought in those guys? Russell Okung. And Russell Okung is their best offensive lineman by a mile. So now, where do you have to go? You have to go offensive lineman here, and you go with the best one available, and that's Rashawn Slater. This man pancakes guys, and it's a better value than outside linebackers and cornerbacks here because those guys should go a little bit later. But Slater, oh my goodness, great guy. He pancakes Chase Young. When does that happen? Never. So he's really good. I like him a lot, and I think his versatility also helps them because they do have, some good tackles. But, it's their guards that are really the major issues on their offensive line. So we could play guard if they want. So I think that's why Slater works here better than a tackle that I almost like a little bit more that I'll reveal later. But, I'm going to keep saying this, but, and let's move on because I don't really know how to speak to people or speak to myself. But that's a challenge for another time, and I am one who does not want to address it right now. On YouTube, you can cut that, Gavin. So, number 9, this is my favorite pick of the draft. One that I've never seen before, but I absolutely adore. I adore this pick. I think this man will turn into the best linebacker in football if he goes here. And that is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah out of Notre Dame, being drafted 9th overall by the Denver Broncos. Wow, this is a good draft pick. So, guys that are available here that most people would think are like Michael Parsons, all these guys, blah, blah, blah. But great, they're not great at quarterback, right? Drew Lock, but I think you got to give him one more year with a healthy Courtland Sutton and himself being healthy. So I think you got to give him one more year. You have good weapons in Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, Courtland Sutton, and Noah Fant. And then with Garrett Bowles and Dalton Risner taking a step last year, their offensive line's looking pretty good. And then on the defense, your edges are set. Your edges are some of the best in the NFL with a Bradley Chubb, and this little guy, have you ever heard of him? Von Miller? I don't know who that is. And then they also just locked up Selby Harris because he's really good. And then they just brought in, we're like, oh yeah, let's bring in the passes defended leader from last year and the passes defended leader from 2018 and one of the best cornerbacks in football because fuck the Bears, because they're like, let's cut his ass for no reason. And that's Kyle Fuller. So I originally had like a Caleb Farley who, spoiler, is the next Kyle Fuller in my opinion. Go here. Go to the Broncos, but then, of course, the back surgery as well as they brought in Kyle Fuller. So there's no need for that. But then there's one major weakness. Look at their inside linebackers. Alexander Johnson. I mean, he's fine. And then Jose Jewell. I'm sorry, Jose Jewell. If you're watching this, please come on the podcast. But, come on. So they go Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. With Vic Fangio? Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah with Vic Fangio, the greatest tandem in NFL history. They're going to be so good, and I love that mix, and I love Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and he's an amazing, amazing player, and this is the perfect fit for him, and he's going to excel here. So that's why I have him going there. Then 10, pretty obvious. I mean, Cowboys need a cornerback, so they're going to draft cornerback 1, and that's going to be a cornerback, and that's going to be, for me personally, J.C. Horn, right? So I've been conditioned by Pro Football Focus to be like, maybe J.C. Horn isn't really that much of an athlete. I heard a guy from Pro Football Focus say that J.C. Horn isn't really much of an athlete. Now, let's look at this. A 6'1" corner, 200 pounds. He's a 21-year-old. He repped 19 times at 225. That's the same amount as Micah Parsons. He has a 41.5-inch vert. And guess what? He runs a 4.37 40. Not an athlete, my ass. What the hell? What is this? He's amazing. He's absolutely amazing. I can't believe that they did this. Now, he's more physical than Surtain. He has better zone than Surtain. He doesn't get beat that often. He's really good. Nice footwork, athlete, physicality, hands. And then the only issue is that his zone's okay because he doesn't really play it that much. So if he goes to a place that plays a ton of zone, which the Cowboys actually don't really play a ton of zone, he's going to work out well there. And I really like him. And I think he's like kind of a watered down Jalen Ramsey, because Jalen Ramsey was like, I think, one of the best defensive back prospects since Deion Sanders. So I don't think he's that good, but I think he's amazing. So I really like J.C. Horn here, and I think he's the best. Now, if you say Patrick Surtain's better, or you think Caleb Farley or Greg Newsome or Asante Samuel are better for some reason that is unknown to anyone but God, then sure, do that. But I personally think J.C. Horn's the best, so I'm going to put him here. But basically, CB1. Also, what the fuck? Pro Football Focus. Not an athlete? Not an athlete. Stupid. Number 11, second of 3 straight NFC East teams, or should I say NFC the shit least teams, is the New York Football Giants. It's the New York Football Giants. I have him taking wide receiver out of Alabama, Jaylen Waddle. Now, I personally love Jalen. I don't know. I think Jalen Phillips. I love Jalen Phillips. I actually like him more than Waddle here. But here's the thing, that their edge is already good. Their defense is really good. And I think what they should do is that they should do an all-out Daniel Jones year. Say, Daniel Jones, we're going to give you every option possible. You now have 4 really good wide receivers in Golladay. Waddle, I think, is going to be amazing. And then, of course, I think good 3 and 4 options are Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard. Like, they're fine. They're good for 3-4 options. And then, so I think you say to Daniel Jones, right? We upgraded the offensive line. You now have Saquon back, and you have a top-tier wide receiver core. Go and do well. If you don't do well, you're going to be out of this league. So I think that's what they should do, and that's what they're going to do here, in my opinion. So they have Jaylen Waddle here, as well as Jaylen Waddle fits perfectly with Kenny Golladay. Fits perfectly. It's a beautiful fit with Kenny Golladay. Both deep threats, one speed, one's 50-50 catch ball ability. I mean, it's an amazing fit together, and I love it. And then you have 2 short route running fast guys in Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton. I mean, that's a great wide receiver core right there. So I like the pick here, and here is Jaylen Waddle. Also, by the way, why is there so many different spellings of Jalen? You have Jaln, you have Jalen, you have Jaylen, and then you also have Jaelen. Why so many people spelling the same name differently? I don't understand it. But anyways, the third and final of the NFC East teams, up until we get to the one that somehow made it to the playoffs, is the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, here, once again, you know who I like more? Jalen Phillips. But I have Micah Parsons going here. And Micah Parsons going here is because they already have money locked up in the edges. They have Derek Barnett and Brandon Graham. They already paid these 2 guys a ton of money. So you can't just go pick another edge when you have a clear hole at middle or outside linebacker. And that's where I think Micah Parsons is really, really going to step in. And that's why I think they're going to draft him here. So I love the Micah Parsons pick here. I like Micah Parsons' upside. I mean, if you want to watch, just like the right tackle, if you want to watch a defensive player dominate like there's no tomorrow, watch the Memphis Cotton Bowl game. Penn State Memphis 2019. It is arguably one of the greatest defensive performances I've ever seen from a guy playing defense. It is incredible. Did I just say it? Yes, I did. Whatever. Cut that if you want. It is crazy at how good he was that game. And if that's his upside, that's best linebacker in the league material. So I think that they take a swing on that one and they try and upgrade the middle of their defense, which I think will help their scenario. And then also I think their cornerbacks are better than their outside linebackers, because I think Slayton and then Avonte Maddox had really, really good showings when he was a rookie back in 2018. I think he can build on that eventually. So next is at number 13, the Los Angeles Chargers. Their needs are mainly offensive tackle, cornerbacks, and a second cornerback and an edge. Now, do they have Joey Bosa? Yes. But I think I like Phillips right now, best player available at any of those positions, and I like him a lot. I think he's a top-tier edge rusher of the past few drafts. Of course, you have your guys like a Chase Young, which is the only guy I keep mentioning because that's the only guy I remember, but you also have Myles Garrett. So I think he's really, 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 really good. When I first saw Brett Coleman be like, this guy's clearly number one, I was like, what? No, Rousseau or something like that. Or Ojulari or Pay. Now, this will show once we get to the end. I'm not a big fan of Pay. But that's for you, Drew Ebner. Fuck Pay. He's a piece of shit. I mean, not he is a piece of shit, but he is shit at football. He's not good. He's so overrated. But anyways, so Jalen Phillips, I think he's the best player available at cornerback, tackle, or edge. So I'm going to go with him here. Pretty simple explanation, and I really love him. He has a ton of skill, and I think he projects as if I can find him, I think he projects as, this is one of my favorite comparisons. 2013 prime Robert Quinn, a tall, fast guy on the edge who can really do anything, and he can stand up or be in a 3-point, and then he can also drop back and not be picked apart every time on coverage. Now, am I saying he's fucking Casey Hayward Jr. or something? I don't know why that's the first time that came to my mind, but no, he won't get killed. So let's move on to Patrick Surtain, who I have going to the Vikings here at number 14. Gladney. Ever since the Gladney incident where I think he got arrested or something, that's become a need. I think Gladney I think with that incident, whole thing, that's not going to be good for the whole, locker room where guys are committing crimes. But it's football, so we'll see. So I think it's become a need, and it's better value here to take Surtain than another edge. So I have them taking Patrick Surtain, who I like a lot. I like him a lot. I just like J.C. Horn more. I like him a lot, but I just like J.C. Horn more. He's a play rec god. He can recognize every play. Oh my God, he's amazing. His closing speed is amazing, but he doesn't have great in-air ball skills. His ball skills aren't great. He's easily beat on short routes. He's always playing deep. So at least in 2020, he was. In 2019, he was more physical. So I think that shows that he can be more physical. But I think on the overall, I think he was, really off the ball a lot more than I remember hearing about it. So I have him as like a Chris Harris Jr. So I think he's going to be good, and I like that pick there at number 14 for the Minnesota Vikings. Moving on to the Patriots, I think this is pretty obvious. It's a need. Quarterback, obviously. I love you, Cam Newton, but it's a need. So they need a new quarterback, and I don't like Trey Lance at all. He's so overrated. He's going to be a bust no matter where he goes. Mac Jones here at number 15. Pretty self-explanatory. Unless you want me to go in depth, but I don't think for this episode I'm going to go in depth on every prospect. Comment down below. I did research on 41 prospects. If you want me to go through each prospect and give you pros, cons, stuff I noticed, weird things after the draft, then leave a comment down below. Leave a like on this video or continue watching. Get those watch time numbers up. Then I'll go more in depth to prospects, but I just kind of want to talk about why I have guys going in certain places. So that's what I'm doing. So let's move on to number 16 to the Cardinals. Now, I was looking at the Cardinals roster and I was like, oh, this is easy. There's a clear hole at this place or that place. And, I don't really remember what I was thinking. But, I was like, not expecting the hole to be the hole that I have. And I was expecting it to be something else. I don't love their cornerbacks, right? I think they're big. They obviously have no holes on offense. They have a great, offensive line that was really, really good. I think their running backs will be able. They just got depth in James Conner, so I think they'll do a two-headed monster thing there. And then they have Hopkins and AJ Green and Christian Kirk, so they're good at wide receiver. Their tight end leaves more to desire, but there's going to be not another tight end in the first round, so it is what it is at this point. Edges, they don't need an edge. I mean, you have Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt. I mean, what else can you want out of an edge defender? Their inside linebackers, Jordan Hicks and Isaiah Simmons, right? Rookie and really, really good guy. And then we get to the issue of cornerbacks. I just don't think there's good value here. Ever since we learned about having microscopic back surgeries Caleb Farley is having, that's dropped it a lot because back surgery is scary. Back surgery is a really, really big deal for guys. And I don't think that that's really gonna turn out well. Now, I hope it does because I like Caleb Farley, but I would be scared to take him with the top 16 pick. So what is their other hole? Interior defensive lineman, so they're going to get the best available, and that is Christian Barmore. This is a great pick. Their nose tackle right now is Rashad Lawrence. No disrespect to him. Not really the greatest guy at no. He played he didn't play a lot, but he only got 9 tackles. So I mean, not great. And then you get this absolute monster who's just like a Alabama nose tackle, a great guy who just kind of eats up blocks. This man is a block eater, and that's what he does. And imagine a guy who's a block eater, and then you have J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones. I mean, amazing. I comp him to Stephon Tuitt, and I think that's a great, great pick for them, and it will make that front line formidable front line for them there. So let's move on to the next pick, which is the Las Vegas Raiders. And for the Raiders, I thought edge was going to be an issue, but then it looked like they signed Yannick Ngakoue, and they still have Clelin Ferrell, which I assume they still have faith in, so they're going to be good with, and they have Max Crosby, who's pretty good. And then I don't like their cornerbacks, but their cornerbacks are young. And I don't like their middle linebackers, but their middle linebackers are okay. But you know who I hate more? A wide receiver mix of Henry Ruggs, John Brown, and Hunter Renfrow. If Hunter Renfrow is your third wide receiver, that's an issue. So they're going to go wide receiver here, and they're going to go best available, and this guy is going to work great. Once again, it's another perfect fit, like the Waddle Galladay system. Rashad Bateman and Henry Ruggs are really going to work well together because Bateman is your classic number one. He's your guy who's going to be taller, better route runner, number one guy, classic stuff. Now, the thing with him is I actually had a weird comp for him, I think. I had a weird comp for him, but then I was looking for other comparisons. I had him as like Vikings Stephon Diggs, which I thought was a pretty good comp. But then I saw like a watered down Michael Thomas, and I really liked that. So I think he's like a watered down Michael Thomas now. So I really, really like him, and he's going to be a great number one to complement Henry Ruggs, and I like that pick a lot. And his value is much better than what's left at edge or cornerback at this point in the draft at number 17. Now, number 18. This is going to be a pick that not a lot of people are going to be really happy of, right? There's a lot of people saying Najee Harris, Christian Darrisaw, that kind of thing. I actually have Tevin Jenkins. This man is going to single-handedly make the run game of the Miami Dolphins insane. Now, let's say everything that I do happens, right? Spoiler alert, Travis Etienne is still going to be available. So you can pick him up with that 23rd overall pick unless he goes to the Jets, in which case you could get one of the 2 North Carolina backs who are also really, really, really good. So you take the offensive lineman here. And the reason why, as well, even though I think Najee Harris is so much better than any other running back in this class, Tevin Jenkins, in my opinion, is the offensive tackle version of a Quentin Nelson. He's a guy who's a mauler, insane motor. He just wants to kill people. He wants to stab them in the throat with his hands and then rip it out and watch their life drain from their eyes. He's a mauler, and he's a guy who's going to go in there and do what Quentin Nelson does. Even though the rest of the guys aren't that good, he's going to make them better with his energy, with his just wanting to stab everybody he can see and punch everybody he can see. So he's going to make everything better with his attitude. And like I said, like a Quentin Nelson. So absolute mauler. I love him a lot. Like I said, I like him more than I actually like him more than Slater, but Slater has that versatility, which helps him go a lot earlier than Jenkins, where Jenkins is kind of stuck at that right tackle, which does help because they drafted the left tackle with, I think, the same overall pick, 18th last year, with Austin Jackson. So then now they have two young guys at tackle, and one of them is going to come in and absolutely kill people, and I love it. The next pick is Trey Lance. I don't like him. His arm is so overrated. He did in all the games I watched him, he threw 9 balls where the air time, or it was over 30 yards in the air, and nine throws in like 6 games I think I watched. So not that often, number one. Number two, he was 0 for 9 on completions, 1 for 9 for anywhere near the wide receiver for a catchable ball. 1 for 9 in catchable balls. And this man's deep ball is supposedly great. Okay, he's slow. He can't recognize things. He doesn't look off safeties. He can't do that. He can't do anything that is like smart. And then his athletics are so overrated in athleticism. So I don't understand. I don't like it. But if he falls to this point, he's a quarterback. He still has potential, right? He still has the ability to throw it 50 yards downfield. Is it accurate? No. Can he still run? Does it look slow, clunky, and annoying? Yes. But can he? Yes. So at value here for the Washington football team, it's really good, especially when you don't have any potential at that position whatsoever. Moving on to the Bears at number 20. This one was one of the toughest ones of the draft. In the later rounds of the draft, this was extremely tough. This was a decision between Christian Darrisaw, Terrence Marshall Jr., and Greg Newsome. Now, why Newsome? Because we cut Kyle Fuller because we're stupid, and I really like Greg Newsome. Why Terrence Marshall? He surprisingly went up boards. I really like him. A 6'4" guy who could run, I think, a 4.3 40. I'm going to have to ask you to cut this, Kevin, because I want to look it up, and I want to double check. Marshall, 4.4 flat. So a 6'4" wide receiver runs a 4.4 flat with some catching issues. No. So very close. But I think, in my opinion, you got to trust Darnell Mooney. And with the quarterbacks you have now, and Andy Dalton and Nick Foles, if you're trying to win games now, which I think Matt Nagy and not win now, but if you're trying to keep your job and try and win as many games as you possibly can, I think you go with the guy who would be the best fit on this roster, and that's going to be Christian Darrisaw. I really like him. I think he's technically better than Tevin Jenkins. I think Jenkins' mauler attitude is going to be able to carry him further, but I think Darrisaw is so big. He's so big, like 6'7" with insanely long arms. He just envelops pass rushers in his box. He just envelops them and keeps them right there, and they can't fucking move, and it's insane. He's so good at it. And he's just able to envelop guys, and I went with Darrisaw just because I think the value right now for this team is better for the Bears than a Terrence Marshall or a Greg Newsome, despite liking them a lot as well. So the next pick, 21 overall, we have the Indianapolis Colts. Not a lot of holes here. They addressed their main hole with Carson Wentz, and I think he'll be a lot better because of the fact he'll be back with Frank Reich, who really, really helped him, be the quarterback he was when he was really good back in 2017, in 2018 pre-injury. So I think that's going to be really good for him. So we realized what happens when he has no weapons. And right now, I'm going to be honest, I like Michael Pittman. I don't love him. I like Paris Campbell's like a fourth or a fifth. As a third, I don't really love him. T.Y. Hilton anymore, I don't really love him. So let's get him a potential really good option, and that is Terrence Marshall Jr. out of LSU, a 6'4" wide receiver who runs a 4.4, who does have drop issues, which really annoys me, but is insane. He's really good. Underrated route runner as well. I really like him on the route running, and his release is nasty. So I like him a lot. I think it's just mainly the drop issues. When you have one of the more steady-handed wide receivers for a long time in T.Y. Hilton, then I think that'll help you a lot. So Terrence Marshall here is going to be the right pick for them. And it's pretty obvious. Just more weapons for Wentz, and it's going to really help their offense, and their defense is already, in my opinion, best in the NFL. Next is the Titans. Now, for the Titans, I was thinking like edge all the way. Ever since the beginning, edge all the way. But then they somehow managed to land, what's his name? Bud Dupree. As well as they kept Harold Landry, who I honestly find really good. I think he's underrated nationally by the fact that he literally never gets talked about nationally. And then Jeffrey Simmons, and they also got Denico Autry, which I really like that pickup as well. So I think that their front seven is honestly set with Simmons, Autry, Landry, Jayon Brown, Rashad Evans, and Bud Dupree. That is a nice front seven. But then, besides Kevin Byard, that back 4 or 5, ooh, oh, that's dirty. That is not a good dirty either. That is gross. I mean, Janoris Jenkins, Christian Fullerton, and Amani Hooker. Amani Hooker. So you go with the best guy available, and I think that their safeties are pretty wrapped up with Kevin Byard, because Kevin Byard's by far the best there, and he's really, really good. So I think that their safeties kind of can be bailed out. Their other safety can be bailed out, so that's why I'm not going Morrig here, even though I do like Morrig more. I'm going to go with the more position that is definitely more valuable when you're starting Christian Fullerton. No offense to him. If you're watching this, once again, come on the pod, please. We don't mean any offense to any of you guys, but if you're watching this, come on. Anyways, they're going to go with the Northwestern guy, and I know people like Jack Tobin or Berger are going to be down in the comments and be like, oh my god, trainer, and you fake Illinois fan. Yeah, I'm a bandwagon. Get over it. I'm a bandwagon college fan, and this hat is absolutely sick. So let's go with Greg Newsome here. I really, really like him. He's a great guy as a cornerback as well. I mean, not only is he a great guy, I hope so. He went to Northwestern, so I really, really like him. Good hands. He's a really good cornerback in every way that he can be, right? He can be physical, good hits, good at reading, good with his hands, good with his run defending. He's actually a pretty good run defender, and his closing speed is ridiculous. And his weaknesses is just kind of like he's not that physical. So therefore his man isn't the greatest, but he's not bad. That's just like it, I guess. He's like an overall around kind of good guy. And my comparison to him is like a Micah Hyde. I know Micah Hyde's a safety, but an all-around guy whose physicality isn't really the greatest, but his zone's just outstanding, and it really carries him. So I like that a lot for the Titans. And people may say free agency, they addressed edge with free agency, and then wide receiver. You lost Corey Davis, and then you have, I think, Justin Humphreys or whatever starting. What is his name? You have, as your wide receiver 2, you have Josh Reynolds. That's not good in any sense of the word. But this wide receiver class is stacked. It is stacked. I have 7 going in the first round. 6 or 7 going in 7 in the first round. And then I still think there's good guys to go in the second round. So I think they could get a guy like a Rondale Moore or a Seth Williams or any of the two North Carolina guys. What is it with 2 North Carolina players at the same position that I can never remember that are good second round picks? It's the 2 running backs, they have 2 linebackers and 2 wide receivers that are all really good, but then for some reason, I don't know. It's weird how they do that. But once again, there's options in the second round where I feel like at corner, there's not as much. You got to kind of hope Asante Samuel falls, and that's about it. Or somehow Farley, but I have Farley going in the first round, so I don't see that happening. But next, the Jets, I have At 23rd, I have Najee Harris. Now, Najee Harris, a lot of people in the now day and age are like, oh my God, running backs, you can't take them really high. You can't take them in the first round. They're so invaluable. They don't matter at all. No, number one, yeah, they matter less, much less. Like, because I think 5-10 years ago, you'd have not Najee Harris top 5, which I think would be dumb. But like, I really like Najee Harris. I love the comparison. Love the comparison to Matt Forte. A bigger Matt Forte. I love that comparison. It's a great comparison. And I like him as a player. He can do everything and he can run right through you. And I love it. And I think the reason why I have the Jets picking him instead of like an offensive lineman like the Dolphins, right? I had the Dolphins taking offensive lineman over running back because I felt like the offensive line was going to help more, is that of who's left, I don't think it'll help them that much as well, since their tackles are pretty solidified, and I don't think any of the set and their center is really good. He's super underrated. So you don't have any really guys that I'm like in love with that I think will affect their run game more, as well as if you have Frank Gore as your starting running back, you literally cannot compete with any team in the NFL. So I think the disparity of like where their offensive linemen rank is probably, let's say, 20th, right, in the NFL, and then their running backs is dead last by a long margin. So let's bring that up by bringing in Najee Harris. Now, flip it. We have 24 Steelers taking the offensive lineman instead of the running back, mainly because I really don't like ETN, and I think he's completely overrated. For projected first round pick. I just don't see it. They lost Marcus Pouncey, so why don't you get another in Landon Dickerson? I love him. He was able to pancake every single guy that I saw that I watched against him, right? Because Chassian in 2019. Sorry, my brain was blanking. Derek Brown. He stood his ground against Derek Brown. I remember I was at the game where they played each other, and Derek Brown wasn't that big of a factor, and that's thanks to Landon Dickerson. So I really, really like Dickerson here, and I think Pouncey is like a big, big loss because, he's the captain of that offensive line, and he's really an emotional leader. So I think that's a big, big loss. So you bring them in, as well as their two other running backs in Snell and McFarland are good and they're young, so they have room to grow. And then once again, it's the same scenario as I said with the Dolphins, where you can get an ETN, you could get any of the two North Carolina guys. You will probably get those guys in the second round, because let's say the Dolphins will take one at 36. You'll take the Dolphins will take one ETN, and then you have your choice of the North Carolina guys. So I really like that pick of Landon Dickerson. I think that his value at center will also help with the Big Ben because you need the most protection you can get. And if you're going to have guys screaming up the middle, it's not going to be good. So let's move on to the Jags. At 28, pretty easy. Best player available, Trayvon Moehrig. He's a great, great safety. I loved him a lot. He was an amazing safety. He was able to really do anything and everything he wanted to, and he was really skilled. And, his only issue is that he's a little bit too over-aggressive. And that causes his tackling to have some issues and his ball skills to have a little issues because he'll overplay a ball. So he's just too giddy. And it's way easier to get a guy who's way too giddy down a level than it is to get a guy who's under giddy, I guess. Under giddy up to the, the normal level. And his play recognition is insane. And his acceleration, oh my goodness. He reminds me a lot of Jesse Bates. I really like that comparison of Jesse Bates, so I like him a lot. And then they need help on that back end. They really, really need that help on that back end. And then also Edge needs a lot of help, but there's not good value here. So I like the value of best player available with Trayvon Moehrig. And then we move on to number 26 with the Cleveland Browns. I probably would have went Moehrig here before their free agency, but then they made one of the best free agency signings of the free agency with John Johnson, an insane pickup. Also, they picked up Ronnie Harrison, which I like a lot. And then they just have Grant Delpit coming back. And then at the corners, you have Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams is going to be coming back. And they signed Troy Hill. So their defensive backfield set. Then they signed Jadeveon Clowney. Do I think Jadeveon Clowney is really, really that good? No. But he can be. So I think they take a risk on him. And they sign Malik Jackson, who I think could be good. So their front four is set. But then your linebackers are as follows. A name I cannot pronounce correctly, but I'll try and say it. Sione Takitaki. Yeah, Taki or Taki, whatever you want to say it as. Anthony Walker and Jacob Phillips. Now, if that doesn't strike fear into the heart of every football team, then they're not a football team because that shouldn't strike fear into anyone whatsoever. So you take the best player available at that position, in my opinion, that's Jamin Davis. Jamin Davis is really good, and I think he's about even with Zaven Collins. But here's the thing is that Jermaine Davis can run a 4.45. Zaven Collins cannot. And they're both really good in coverage. Zaven Collins is just stronger. So I think the better coverage linebacker with a higher upside with a team that's on the up and up with a good coach, I think that matters a lot more at the time than Zaven Collins does. So I'm going to have him take Jamin Davis. Then we have Sir Ravens with their first pick, and they're going to go with their first of two picks since they just made the trade, I think, yesterday to trade away Orlando Brown because he wanted out because he couldn't stand playing right tackle. So they traded him to the Chiefs, of course. So now all their problems are fixed by signing Kyle Long and now getting Orlando Brown. So now they're back to being really, really good. On the offensive line, at least. Otherwise, pretty shit team overall, I'm going to be honest with you. They're going to take Elijah Vera Tucker. They're going to need offensive line help. And I think the guy who started like Troy something, he actually did pretty good in the right tackle as Orlando Brown moved to left when Ronnie Stanley got injured. So he actually did pretty good. So I like Elijah Vera Tucker here because he has the movement. So if they want to put him at guard to replace Marshall Landa from a couple years ago, obviously that hasn't really been going well because, you know, when you lose a Hall of Famer, you're probably not going to put one right back in right after him. So there's that. So I think they just, you know, it's the best value. There's not a great value for wide receiver right here because all that's left is an Elijah Moore, Kadarius Toney, and Rondell Moore if you want him, and a bunch of other guys. But not great value here. And then I think Terrence Marshall would fit perfectly. And I didn't want to go Moore here, even though I like Moore, because Moore is kind of the same player as Hollywood Brown. So that doesn't really help anything. But he has great hands. But we'll get to that when he gets drafted. But let's move on to New Orleans Saints with Caleb Farley. So the microscopic back surgery, that does scare me. But here's the thing with the Saints. They now have time. They have time to let this guy recover and recoup. And somehow, some way, they managed really any loss at the cap. Now, most people would probably go Zaven Collins. Would I blame you for going Zaven Collins here? No. Their linebackers aren't really that strong. But there's a guy that they have on their roster that I loved from last year, and that's Zach Bond. I loved Zach Bond coming out. I actually had him going in the first round last year in my mock draft. I loved him coming out, so I think that he'll be able to step up. And then they still have Demario Davis. Now, does Andrew Dowell really strike fair into me? No, but like they can probably get a guy in the later rounds, or they can trade up and get Zaven Collins, where CJ Gardner-Johnson, even though he's the man to get everyone to punch him in the face, specifically Bears wide receivers. I'm talking to you, Anthony Miller. I'm talking to you, Javon Wims. I dislike that more. So I think they're going to go with the value, and especially if Caleb Farley with his skill level drops this far, like I said, he's just a bigger Kyle Fuller. He plays off man all the time, but his athleticism is so good that it doesn't matter that he can play off man, off zone, and still make up for everything. So I love that value pick and best player available there. So as you can see, we're on to our, if it can focus, we're on to our final three. Will it focus there? Final three picks. We're going to start with 4 picks. Sorry. Number 29, the Packers. Now, I'm not going to talk about why they're going to draft Elijah Moore for that long because it's obvious they need a wide receiver who works as a wide receiver too. Short, fast, and he has great hands. I mean, he made some ridiculous catches. He has some amazing sticky hands, and he fits the system really well. So he'll like fill in for Lazard and Scantling. So now they won't have the tallest wide receiver core because I didn't know Lazard was 6'5". So they had 6'3" Devontae Adams, 6'5" MVS, and 6'5" Lazard. So that's pretty crazy. But anyways, it is almost the next day. So let's try and finish this up quickly. But anyways, Elijah Moore here, pretty obvious, great wide receiver number 2 prospect, so he's going to be going here. Next, Bills take not many holes, but they did have a lot of low sack percentage. Their highest sack leader had 5. So I think they go the best edge available in Gregory Rousseau. And a lot of people will say other people, but I like Rousseau here because they're going to do what they did with Ed Oliver. Take a physical specimen instead of just like speed at his size. It's now size and a 6'7" edge defender. Take him and then turn him into a great guy just like they did with Ed Oliver. So pretty simple. Do that and then boom, you got a guy who's going to get you 10 sacks a year. Next is the Ravens. This is where you get your wide receiver and you get the best one available in Kadarius Toney. I think the value here, of course, you're like value at 27 versus 31. Oh my God! But I think I would have probably gone Vera Tucker if for the Bills for sure, maybe for the Saints. So he would have been gone by now. So I think getting Vera Tucker first and then Toney second is good, and they needed a position. He's the best player available. I mean, he's great, no, but he's a fine route runner. He's a good, really good 50-50 ball getter. And he's just fine. He has kind of a drop issue, as most people do in this draft class and nowadays. And then the Bucs, since they decided to re-sign every single person that was a free agent, you just go best player available. And the best player available for me is Azeez Ojulari, edge. You get him under the wing of Jason Pierre-Paul or Ndamukong Suh, and you could just let him go after the next year. And also, I think there's like one random guy who's on there, and then now you put a young guy like Azeez. Because they obviously have great wide receivers, great tight ends, great quarterback, obviously. The running back tandem's really good. And their offensive line is the best in the league. And yeah, exactly. William Golston. You replace William Golston with Azeez. Like, I mean, it's not even close. And then you have great linebackers in Pierre-Paul, Devin White, David, and Barrett. And then Carlton Davis and Sean Murphy and Bunting aren't great, but they're young and they could get better. And then, there's not a great cornerback left available unless you really love Asante Samuel over Azeez. So you just go best player available. And I want to thank you all for listening, how long you have, if you've listened to me ramble for this long. Gavin, thank you for also listening to me ramble this long. He was on mute the entire time. Haha, tricked you guys. You can leave that out if you want. Up to you. But thank you for listening for so long. This was probably my favorite episode to make. I spent probably 20 hours on this. This was insane. It took a lot of work to scout all these guys, so I would really appreciate it if y'all left a like down below or you commented, whether it's not a mean comment, whether it's a criticism or you would just want to be an asshole. I don't really give a shit. But please try and get this video to be the video to get us to 100 subscribers. That would be really, really appreciated for both me and Gavin. We both really want to get there. So we want to thank you so much. And we're getting close on a year. And we've done together on the Zoom or Google Meet for so long. I will spoil this. Our 1-year anniversary episode is going to be in person, so we're super excited for that. Leave any comments of video ideas down below. Like I said, if you want me to go more in depth on each prospect and what I thought of each one, or you want us to do a pick grade video after, that is cool too. Thank you all so much for listening. It is now Monday. I've spent way too long on this. Thank you all, and goodbye.